Hello, everybody. This is Ed K. Smith from mylivelihood.com.au here with my lovely co-host, Lois.
Hello.
And we are very fortunate today to have a faraway guest, Mr. Simon Chen from 8blackcars.com, who is based in Colorado in the USA. Hey, Simon.
Hey, Ed. Hey, Lois. How are you?
Hi, Simon. Great, thanks.
We're very happy to have Simon on. His time in the US is around just after 6 o'clock in the evening. We are 8 o'clock in the morning because we have quite a time difference, of course, between Australia and the US. So we're very happy to have Simon on. Simon and I have some history going way back that we'll get into, and we'll have a chat with Simon about what his business is and what his history is of doing business. He's got a very intricate and detailed story he's going to weave for us, haven't you, Simon?
No
pressure.
I'll try.
Simon's going.
Well, it's 6 o'clock. Can I start drinking now, or should I?
Yes, go for it.
Absolutely.
Yes,
that's
Simon
fine.
does have a beverage in his hand other than water.
Well, no, this is water. See, water.
That's his water, but he's got something else as well. It just depends on how tough the interview gets. He might
exactly. If I start sweating.
And it's after 6 o'clock in the evening, so that's completely fine.
Exactly.
If I was drinking some scotch in the morning at 8 o'clock, that'd be a worry.
We are from Perth. I wouldn't hold it against you, so that's okay.
That's right. Now, Simon, we were discussing internet connections before. Because we are so far away, often, sometimes, you can have little glitches and stuff. So we apologise for anything that happens, but it's probably from our end, not from his, because he's got a ridiculously fast internet connection of 1 gigabyte up and 1 gigabyte down. And we just have a fraction of that. We're still operating on tin cans with string here in Perth. So
well, Ed, I only have that because I have a 19-year-old son in the basement who plays video games. And so that's the only way it's the only way he'll stay at home if I have a fast internet connection.
Well, there you go. If you want to get rid of him, switch the internet off. That's the answer.
Exactly.
I was going to say, Simon, when you said he's in the basement, he's allowed out then,
Yeah.
Well, it comes up when he's hungry, So.
They all do that. That's pretty standard.
Yeah,
so a bit of a history. We'll go into your history, but just a bit of a connection. How we know Simon. It comes from myself attending a seminar that Simon put on in 2004 called the X10 Seminar, which was an internet marketing seminar based in Hyatt Coolum in Queensland in Australia. That was between September 3rd and 5th. And I attended that, and it was fantastic. It was probably one of the best marketing internet seminars that I think I've ever been to since. And it unfortunately has spoilt me because everything I hold up to that standard. It was a fantastic event with really, really great speakers who I got connected with and have been friends with quite a few of them since then. I actually met my business partner, Alan Stewart, there for the first time, but we didn't end up connecting as business partners then. It happened about a year later through another weird coincidence, but we were both there. And Alan said to remind you that he came second in the affiliate competition, just in case you'd forgotten.
Really?
Yeah. Perry Marshall beat him out. He was a bit annoyed by that, but
competing against Perry Marshall, remember?
That's it. So he was quite happy that he got the second most people to attend the event, other than Perry Marshall. So anyway, he just said to say that to you. So Simon, we met. I was an attendee at that conference. And say 2004, I remember it was a fair chunk of money. It was about $3,000 for the
about
the
3.5 actually. I think it was about 3.5.
Yeah, something like that. If you look back on the Wayback Machine, all the details are there. If you want to have a good laugh, but it's see some good long form sales copy in action, and and plus airfares and accommodation. And I think even now it's a fair amount of money, but it was worth every cent. It was such a well put on event. So we'll get into the story of that event, but we'll lead up to what got you to put on that event before we go into the details of what that was about, and then we'll talk about what you're doing now. So give us a bit of a once you left high school type thing, uni. We won't go back that far. Well, what were the businesses that you started? Because you've had quite a variety of stuff you've been working on.
I have, and I think, well, Ed and Lars, you know, I appreciate the compliments about the event. It was one of those once in a lifetime things that you do. I think that you say, I want to get this done. I mean, I know that you've, you know, developed a hugely successful online business, but I think that everyone has that turning point in their life where they say, I'm motivated to get this done beyond anything else. And I think when you develop that as a person, and I think everyone has that window in their life that opens that says, I'm going to take this opportunity and run with it. I was fortunate to grow up in a family business environment. And for those people that are, you know, listening, they're either going to roll their eyes or not, because family businesses can be very challenging. A lot of kids go into family businesses that don't want to go into them, and a lot of kids go in and prosper, and a lot of kids go in and ruin it. You know, there's statistics on all of those metrics that family businesses can be challenging. I didn't like our family business very much. You know, it wasn't sexy, but it taught me a lot. And my parents, you know, certainly instilled the right discipline, I think. And I got to travel a lot with my father, and you know, so that got me into my love of travel. And you know, I was working in corporate, and I just got into technology. I mean, I remember, Ed, you know, one of my first real technology jobs was selling mobile phones for $5,500 in Australia. Ooh. And they were so expensive that most people had to lease them.
Right.
You know, and the salespeople, we'd made $500 commission on a phone, and you'd made $100 on the finance contract. And so, and back then, and back then, you know, you'd sell, you know, there was guys that were selling 10 a week, you know, on them. And these were the big Mobiltronics pocket phones, and they were terrible.
Yes,
I mean,
had some of those, yeah.
Yep. But I fell in love with technology at that point. And then, you know, I think I got lucky and I got into corporate. I started working for Hutchison Telecom. I then got recruited to go to Singapore to work for British Telecom. And, you know, one thing I think that whether you're old or young, that the thing that I had going for me, I think, was, you know, working in a family business and growing up in that environment, I learned how to sell. And I think that's one of the biggest skills we can have today. If you can sell something, Ed, and as you know, Lars, you can do anything. You're always going to get a job, right? And I've always relied on my ability to sell something to keep me employed. I've never applied for a job. I've never had to use LinkedIn to go and apply for one. Mainly because if I got a job for corporate now, I'd get fired by lunchtime. I'm absolutely convinced I would not last.
No,
and so I think at 50, you know, now I turned 53, and I was just saying, we've known each other, what, 15 years?
16, yeah.
16 years. Well, you know, you've got about the same. I'm glad that your hair loss is keeping up with mine, because that makes me feel a whole lot.
Mine's actually not hair loss, mate, just to be clear. Mine's just a very short one, but it's probably receded a bit. You
tell yourself whatever that. I'll talk to Lois after.
He's had a coronavirus cut, actually. Sorry, I said that word.
This was my daughter. My daughter did.
You did it yourself, obviously.
No,
Sasha. 2 in the morning, or
okay.
Anyway, so I think, you know, that ability to sell will put you in good stead with anything.
Completely.
And I think, you know, kids, you know, are we teaching our kids to sell? You know, are we teaching the younger generation to sell? Are we teaching them, you know, to...
I think it's Depop recycle fashion at the moment, you know.
Yes.
Right. You know, my son works in our business now, and I think he's learning by just watching.
Yes.
And I think that's important, that kids, you know, get to watch that. I would love for kids to the current generation to be able to actually pick up the phone and use it for what it's intended, which is actually talking to someone. Rather than, you know, if you ask a teenager now, I need you to call your mother, they'll text them, and I'll say to them, did you call your mother? And they said, yeah, I texted them. And I said, no, I need you to call them on the phone. Why? You know, and I think that's a lost skill, you know, teaching kids to talk on the phone. I had to cold call back in those days. I mean, we had to go door to door and sell cell phones, mobile phones, right?
Yeah.
And I've been thrown out of plenty of sales offices. I've been chased by dogs. I've been, you know, but it's just,
battle scars.
I look back on that and I say it was a huge part of my career, right? In terms of, being a hunter as opposed to a farmer, selling something that you had to believe in and going door to door and having the confidence to do that. I was very fortunate that my parents sent me to a Dale Carnegie course when I was 19.
How to win friends and influence people.
I didn't win too many friends, but I learned how to influence people, which was probably a better skill.
Yes.
And, I was reading your guys' bio too as we were getting ready for this. And I also went to a Jim Rohn conference, which was, I found quite life-changing. And we took actually my parents had a retail office, or retail business rather, and we took the whole staff. And as we just thought it was that good, it was on in the, was in the old, in Melbourne. And it was on one of the big sort of exhibition hall type things. And I still remember to this day how important people like Jim Rohn were. And I don't underestimate the importance of those motivational influences in your life in terms of the books we read, the books our kids should be reading, the skills we should be learning. And so, as we got into the tech world and I went to Singapore and stayed there for a long time, and I got to see the world at someone else's expense. And British Telecom, back then, Ed, the internet was just being born in the late 90s. We used to carry around laptops and have 9.6 dial-up modems, and we're told you're not allowed to retrieve the whole email, just retrieve the header, right? And this was British Telecom, right? Had unlimited,
lordy.
And we had our own. We owned the networks, and you'd be busy if you got 4 emails. You'd go to the office in the morning, you'd start up your old Toshiba laptop, and you'd be busy if you got 4 emails, right? You think, oh my God, that's great, right? And so we take a lot of things for granted. But at the end of that, I came back, I got another job with another IT group. And I think I got to that point where I thought, I was itching to do my own thing. And so I decided that I'd quit the company, and people thought I was crazy. And the good thing, if you have a good network in Australia, and certainly being in telco, when you quit and you tell people you're going to do your own thing, people think you're actually having a midlife crisis and you're losing it. And so they give you this consulting work because they think, oh, Simon's gone crazy, right? Well, how about we just get him in to do some consulting, right? Yeah. And they feel sorry for you. So they get you in to do consulting, and then you work on special projects. There's nothing worse than being introduced as the person that's on special projects, because it's like you're a special person, which is like not normal, right? And because of those days, there was so much money around, they could get you to do anything. They said, look, come in and work out on, office optimization, or do this or do that, or we need you to go and help close a deal in, the Philippines or Hong Kong or Japan or something. So I had a lot of friends, very concerned that I was going to lose it. And I was living in Sydney, and I discovered internet marketing, and I'm not sure how, but I decided that, I said to my wife at the time, I'm going to go learn as much as I can about this. And I love traveling. I had miles up, points, frequent flyer points up to Wazoo, and I just jumped on a plane. And I remember going to the first one. I remember going to Ken McCarthy's The System Seminar. Changed my life. Right?
Absolutely. Yep.
Met Perry Marshall there when he was a rookie. Although I wouldn't call him a rookie, but you know what I mean? He was a rookie in the space. And all of the guys. And so I decided that I would, over the next 12 months, I would go and learn as much as I possibly could. And my wife was at the point saying I was just doing it to get away from, looking after our young kids, which is probably true to a point, I think, in hindsight. But, I did, and I just jumped on all these conferences. And I got to a point where I thought, I reckon I could do this. I reckon we could do this. I reckon we could put it with an Aussie spin. And obviously, when you sit in the audience and, with the corporate background I had, I think, and I love attention to detail. I'm an OCD person. I thought, and you would have sat there too and to say, look, I could put this on in the Ed K. Smith way, right? And so I said, that's it. And I obviously had some colleagues helping, like Dr. Michael Hewitt-Gleason. I started to assemble the talent that I'd like, and I went and bought them all an hour of their consulting time. And I think one of the lessons I learned, even today, as we start to embark on stuff. If you want to learn something, you shouldn't be intimidated about approaching the best talent that there is.
Yep.
And buy an hour of their time. Like if someone came to you, if I wanted to learn domain management, Ed, you're the smartest guy I know in domain management. I'd come in and say, Ed, even though I've known you for 15 years, you're not going to take me seriously until I pay you whatever consulting fee you charge me for the hour. It's in Australian dollars anyway. I don't care. Right? So
5 cents.
So,
Conversion.
Exactly. It's like $20, right?
Yeah,
so
nothing.
I would
nothing.
say if I wanted to catch your attention, I'd say Ed or Lois. If it was a HR thing, if it was your skill set, I would say let me buy an hour of your time, because then people take you seriously and you take it seriously. And if I was just jumping on a plane, and I remember coming to see a guy here in Boulder, Colorado, and I live 12 miles from Boulder, Colorado right now. I remember jumping on a plane, driving the rental car all the way up the toll road, seeing Boulder for the first time, paying him his $500 for the hour, which 16 years ago is good money for an hour's consulting, right?
Yep.
And I was paying with Aussie dollars, so it was about 12,000 Australian dollars probably back then.
Yep.
But it taught me a big lesson, is that I could capture people's attention if I treated it as a business, if I treated it as a consulting assignment. What I was used to corporate, when I was in corporate, we hired a lot of consultants all the time.
Yeah.
And I thought that was, an important skill. And so I finally got the team together, and, I thought, well, then the logistics happened, and I was absolutely blessed to have an amazing team work with me in corporate. And I relied on them to get the logistics done. People like Joe Nelson, who was an amazing person that put on the logistics. And, it came together. Did we get enough people there? Probably not. I learned a lot of things about selling, online back then. But I think to this day, to have people like you to come and say it was an amazing event and I got a lot out of it, I think that taught me a lot, and I certainly was grateful for that. And I look back on it now and the career I've had since then, and I can't believe I forgot some of the stuff, and I think that we've had all the learning. Whilst the internet has rapidly evolved, a lot of it hasn't, in terms of the models how to sell online, as
Correct.
You well know. Right?
Yep, the principles are the same.
Right. So affiliate marketing is still the same concept. Okay.
Yeah.
Email marketing is still the same concept. Writing good copy, is still a lost art. Even today, 16 years later, good copy is rare. Corporates don't do it. Right.
No.
Good copy will sell something straight off the page. Right. And understanding bounce rates and understanding email marketing metrics, that sort of stuff is important. SEO, white hat versus black hat, understanding the difference. You can't cheat the system. And so, I look at all those things that still are very relevant today. And I'm glad I did that. I'm glad I went through that experience. And so I think that was really important. And, I think look at the evolution in your business too for that.
Well, I would say that, that was one of the reasons that I took it very seriously and actually handed over the $3,500 or whatever it was back then. Because the lead up, you did a very good job of marketing the seminar beforehand, and you were talking about how you were flying around buying the time of these different people, many of which I had come to know of before the seminar. And that was impressive. And you were going back and forth. And in my mind, I was thinking, this guy's serious. And you were also putting it as it was not going to be a pitch fest, which anything I'd attended pretty much before that was a pitch fest. And for those who don't know what a pitch fest is, well, you're fortunate. But it's basically you turn up to go to a seminar to learn things, and all you do is get sold things. I thought the way that it was put on, that you allotted a time at the end of the 3 days for the presenters to talk about what they had to offer, and people could choose to stay or not stay in the event, was fantastic. I think most people stayed because the value and the quality of the content that was delivered up to that point was second to none. And there was no pitching. So you kept up to your promise. And the OCD thing was absolutely apparent, because it was like I was sitting there going, this is how I would do it. This is exactly how I would do it. This is how I would do it. And just like you'd go away from break, you'd come back, fresh bottles of water on all the tables. Things finished on time, which is a huge...
Had he used a ruler between each of the seats?
Pretty much.
Well?
It was like...
Ed did that for us.
Yeah, great.
He was doing his whole row. He was just
he was in the zone.
straightening up his whole row.
I did have to straighten a couple of chairs, to be honest. But
I mean,
no,
it's massive. Putting on events is a massive undertaking, Simon. So I mean, I remember Ed coming back from that just so fired up but like he always talks about it still, even. So when he says about it, I'm like, oh yeah, that one, as if I was there and I wasn't there. But Simon, it obviously didn't instill a want for you to be an event, run event. No,
it did not.
No, that was clear. I think that was clear after. I think we had a conversation after, Simon, and I remember we were walking back to your abode. I think you were in some sort of villa or something that you'd had one of the big fancy places at the Hyatt Coolum, and you're saying, don't ever get into events.
And I think most people would tell you that. Like most people that call events, unless you have a very high threshold of pain, and especially because I hadn't done it before. And I think, you either wake up and say, I'm going to do this as a business. Could I do it again? Yeah. And I would put on events in a completely different capacity. But I think it proves something that if you really want something badly enough, you can do it. And we did it. And did we make mistakes? Of course we made mistakes, right? But I remember, Ed, in one of the mornings on the second day, my villa was beside Perry Marshall's.
Mm-hmm.
And he was talking to people back in the US, and he was saying, this is the way to put on an event. And I thought, and he didn't know I was listening. And I think that, man, if I did the right thing by Perry Marshall, who I to this day regard as one of the smartest guys on the planet.
Yeah.
If I can impress a guy like him, and I've done our job well, Alex Mendosian was a huge influence on my life. Taught me about know, like, and trust. People won't buy anything on you online until they know you, like you, and trust you.
Absolutely. The words come out my mouth.
Won't buy you anything for you, period. Right. So I think that there's some amazing guys that are still around. Armand. They're hugely successful. With audio. Remember back then? Back then with the audio generator stuff.
Audio generator. Yeah.
I mean, that was unheard of to have audio on a website back then. Now we think, well, it's nothing. We've got a Zoom session running between two countries. That you're going to probably publish, within hours, or could publish within hours. We could be streaming it live. Back then, you couldn't do it, right?
Yep. It's amazing. And just so you know, Perry Marshall still talks about the X10 Seminar. He was talking about it at something he ran. He was back here in Australia in November last year. Mm-hmm. And you remember Mike Rhodes?
Yeah.
So he's also in the same space that I'm in, and very successful, and he's actually done some book publishing with Perry on the subject. But they were both talking about how they met and how they connected and how good the X10 Seminar was. So you were still getting pats on the back from those guys just not many months ago, mate. So, and look, the reason we talk about this is I think if you're going to do something well as you possibly can. And the X10 Seminar, the fact that it's stuck in my head for 16 years and it's something I keep talking about and comparing things to. And I would say the only other thing that's come close to it, or probably on a par with it, would be the System Seminar, which I'm sure we were at the same. We were at the 2007 one again. That's where I saw you.
Yeah.
That's where I saw you
Ken
last
McCarthy.
in person. Ken McCarthy, yeah.
Yeah.
And he's been on my other podcasts too, which is
right.
Yeah. So I think it's a very important point to pay attention to how these things get done. And even though you only did the one, it set you up for a lot of other experiences to follow. And so once that was done, what were you doing something else when you ran the seminar? I can't remember whether you were employed or were running another separate business. What were you doing at the time of the seminar outside of it?
We might just wait for the video to catch up. Do you want to ask that question again?
Oh, okay. Sorry, we had a bit of a gap there.
Yeah,
that's okay. I was saying, what were you doing when you were running the systems seminar, were you employed? Were you doing something else at the time? Were you running your own business? I can't remember what was happening at the time.
I was running my own business, and then what happened after the X10 seminar? I'd actually set up a digital consulting business in Australia, and I think that this was another lesson I learned from that, is that, Ed, think of how many conferences you had been to where you had been pitched product or service.
Yeah.
And, people were very successful at selling them. And so, the economic model, which I don't mind sharing now, is that if you're the event organizer, and I have Ed K. Smith come on as let's call it the domain expert, and you've got a product or a service, and let's say that product's $500 for you to buy it at the seminar. I, as the event organizer, make $250, and you make $250, Ed, and that's the way it works typically.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yep.
And so, in the audience was some clients of ours from a big telco, and from their marketing department. And we had a product back then that we sold at the X10 seminar. It was very expensive, it was $8,000, right? And it sold. It didn't. Should have we sold more of it? Of course. Every event guy wants to sell more product. And I remember the client, the head of marketing, coming up to us and said, "Simon, I can't put that on our expenses. I can't buy that, right? But we can hire you we can engage you." And I said, look at that. That was probably a turning point in our consulting, because if you sell a product to an individual, that's one thing. But if you sell a product to a corporate, it's completely different altogether. So for example, Ed, if I want to buy an hour of your time, the average person on the street that's seeing you on the internet, well, Lois, if I want to buy an hour of your time, let's call that $500 now, right?
Friends
Sell
discount,
that to a corporate for $5,000. It's the same hour, right? Corporates have a much higher threshold of pain. Remember, it's not money to them, it's a budget, okay? And so I learned that back dealing with corporates, and I thought, I could keep doing this and at an event level, or I can go to where the big fish are and sell them the same hour for a lot more money. And that's what I did.
Yeah.
And that taught me a big lesson in scaling and using leverage and solving the problem. Corporates want you to solve the problem. I want you to make it go away. And, as I said, if you understand the distinction between real money and a budget in a corporate environment, it can have a profound effect on your result at the end. And so that telco client went on to become, a huge client of ours. And we built some technology for them, which we sold to them. And I loved doing that, much more than the event business. It was a lot easier in that sense. The event business gives you massive highs and massive lows, but running a consulting business with big, heavy duty clients that can afford you and can afford to throw money at problems, I think that's also sexy. That's appealing to me anyway. It just fit my mold, right?
Yeah, I mean, you're adding massive value to them, and as you say, their problems are big and sticky. So you can really change their world. It's awesome.
So
I think, go ahead.
I'll just say, so leading up to what you're doing now, I think back then were you still working out of Singapore?
Yeah, I was working out of Australia, and then I went up to Singapore. We wanted the kids to, have some international experience. I went to the Aussie school up there.
Okay.
And same thing, another client that I'd worked with at BT reached out and said, "We've got a problem. Can you come help us fix it?" So I said, "Yeah, why not?" And so I kept going up and back and up and back. And I thought, we might as well live here for the next couple of years. And that's how it happened.
Yeah, so, fantastic. And at what point did you decide to move to the US?
Well, as you know, I was married to an American, and so it was always the long-term plan that we would move back to the US. We came back to Australia for a stint, then came back to Singapore for a stint, and then it just got to a point where I got sick of the consulting, got sick of the travel, and thought, let's come to Colorado, which is maybe a bit of a slower pace. And I think my wife Denise wanted the kids to finish their schooling here, which I did too. And I kind of think I got to that point where I probably thought way more like an American than an Australian. I'd been around the US so much. And I love the scale of the place, 335 million people as opposed to 24 million people.
Yeah.
If you crack California, there's 35 million people, right?
That's it. Yeah.
So if you're the number one egg producer or the number one milk producer in California, that's bigger than, that's 100% times bigger than anything in Australia. Right?
Or vegan sausages even.
Right. Take a,
whatever's popular there. Yeah.
Take whatever, take some organic, something.
Some of the best food I reckon I had in America was in San Francisco and Santa Barbara. Yeah, beautiful.
So if you become good at your niche in the US, the ability to scale is huge. And I think I found that very appealing in terms of, if we forget what's happening in the world right now, which everyone wants to forget, no matter where we are, right?
Yeah,
that the opportunity for business and the opportunity to raise capital, the opportunity for business success. I'm not saying it doesn't happen in Australia. Of course it does. I think Aussies are some of the most innovative, collective, ambitious people on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
But just about to crack a market, there's a lot of Australian companies that would love the US audience. They're in the wrong place.
Yeah.
They've got the great best product. They're just in the wrong market.
Yeah.
And the US market's still very parochial. They want to deal with Americans, right? There's products today that I cannot fathom how they're still so successful, but Americans keep buying them by the boxful. I have no idea why, right? And so I think that's what I was drawn to. And so we came back to the US and I was still consulting. And then the consulting company that I was working for, there was a German group, they actually went broke, which is very rare in Germany for companies to go Chapter 11. And I'd seen it before and I thought, you know what, maybe it's time to do something I really love. And, I think that's the other lesson I've learned, and it probably just took 40 years too long, is that I love what I do now. And I haven't loved what I've done for a long time. I think I was okay at doing the corporate thing. You do it because you got to do it. You got to make a living. I like consulting. I did. I love traveling. But I think now, being in the industry that we're in ground transportation, I've always been a car geek. I didn't realize, I didn't realize that you could make your hobby into something that you could make your business.
You're speaking my language, Simon.
Lois is, you've woken Lois up now.
I was awake.
Holy shit.
I'm just getting that's my language, because that's what I'm working with people to, encourage them to look for that, and to find. And
that. It was the funniest thing, because when the consulting gig went when that client went broke, I didn't panic. I mean, it was just a pain, and I thought, okay, off we go again. I've got to go get another consulting client. It's a roller coaster. It's it's feast or famine, right? But I was signed up for it. I thought, okay, here we go, right? And I was confident in my network that I could get it done and off, But I thought, no, I'm gonna do this driving thing. And so I actually started as an Uber driver, right?
Right. Okay. Didn't know that yet.
And
I saw that on your LinkedIn profile.
Right. And I loved it. I couldn't believe you could turn on the phone, drive around, it would beep, you'd pick up people, you'd drive them places. I like driving. I had a good car. But then, perhaps the business person in me thought, the economics are all wrong. You would have said, Simon, you got to stop this now. The economics are wrong. And so, especially at the base level. And I thought, well, how can you make more money? You could charge more. And the only way to do that is be an Uber Black driver. And Uber Black is, your Mercedes, your BMW, your black SUVs. That's how Uber started, as a black SUV operator in San Francisco. So I did that. But to be a Uber Black operator in Colorado, you had to have a limousine license. Limousine license was pretty easy. I found online. You go into a bureaucratic government department, pay them some money, fill out a form, get some insurance, off you go. But every customer that we had as an Uber Black customer became our biggest corporate customers.
Wow.
And so we flipped those customers to become corporate. And, we built a good business. I mean, it doesn't set the world on fire, but we went from like $0 to $1 million in 3 years. And more of to the point, I loved it. I was loving it. I was loving the fact I could keep buying cars. And, And also, by the way, it's $1 million US, not $1 million Australian. So
yeah, so about 17 million Australian.
yeah,
Get those done the conversion.
But, and that's not the issue. It was the issue, the fact that you could start from zero and go to here. It doesn't matter what it is. I think, did I have a target? No. And was I impressed by the money? Of course not. But I was impressed in that I was happy and content that we were making clients very happy, and that I loved waking up in the morning doing our job, you know, and then it morphed into something that, you know, the other thing I think, you know, when I was listening to your multiple streams of income, you know, podcast earlier on, is that we didn't set out, perhaps like the X10 Seminar, perhaps, and my OCDness, we didn't set out just to be another limo operator, another black car operator. If you go back to the Wayback Machine, you'll see 5 years ago, we had a product called Concierge Plus. We had executive protection. We had weddings, we had events, we had everything. And so today, as the world has turned upside down, I promise you this, the only thing that's kept us alive today is the fact that we had diversified our income streams, and that we were able to pivot fairly quickly.
Yeah.
And we had, you know, we were, instead of driving executives to the airport, we were going to get their groceries. We were looking after their cars. We were servicing their cars, taking them to the dealership, bringing them back, getting their snow tires taken off them, putting their summer tires back on. We were picking up toilet paper for people because there was a toilet paper shortage. Yeah. I just found out that where you could get toilet paper, it just wasn't in the supermarket. And so,
yep.
You know, we had to pivot, we had to think, we had to act quickly, and we had to shore up our finances. You know, I mean, and I was, you know, I was so relieved that we had clients that were strong enough to help us. And I would, you know, urge anybody that's in business now, that's got clients, that has a relationship with clients, they are your number one asset, because in a time of crisis, more than not, they will help you. The only reason they haven't helped you is you haven't asked them. And so, you know, we were fairly conservative from a cash perspective, but I knew that when this happened, we had to act quickly. And I doubled the amount of cash we had available to us in 4 hours with 2 phone calls to clients. And I think that could you do that in Australia? I'm not sure, Ed, Lois, I'm not. But I knew, based on my relationships with those clients, I was able to pull it off. And I think that, you know, proves that, and it wasn't just me and my ability to do that. I'm talking to your audience to say, if you have a relationship with a client, that is gold. If that client and you have a great relationship, that is better than gold, because when the chips are down, you will find that most often than not, the client will help you, right? They might not help you financially, but they're certainly going to help you in any other way they can. And I think that was something that, and you know, the US aren't like the Aussies in that way. You know, they're just not built that way. You know, we have this concept of mateship and making sure we're looking out for each other. But I think that, you know, it taught me the value of and the importance of, we have had the same clients since the day we started. Yeah, and they've gone from $0 a month to, you know, $15,000, $20,000 a month.
That's amazing. So you've grown with them, they've grown with you.
Right.
And I do find it interesting that your name, your company name, 8 Black, or 8 Black Cars, but 8 Black you had way back then at the X10 Seminar, but it's a name that very, very much suits what you're doing now. It's almost like that name was meant for this. That's my perception. That's the way I look at it. It just seems like
someone asked me how did we come up with the name 8 Black? Well, I tell you, I was sitting in the Auckland casino with our CFO at the time for the company that I was working for. We're playing roulette, and I said to him, Chris, if I ever start a company, I'm going to call it 8 Black, because I bet on 8 Black. And there's nothing sinister about it. People say, oh, you've got 8 black cars. I said, well, we actually got 9 now, or 11, or whatever it was at that point.
Yep.
You know, and so I thought, shit, we're going to have to sell a couple to go back to 8. You know, and it's a lucky number in, you know, Chinese numerology. Of course it is, but that wasn't the case. But yes, I think, and to your point, probably on the importance of domain, choosing the right domain, I've just owned that. You know, I think if you just type in 8 Black, I'll come up everywhere, I think, or, you know, the business will come up. Now, should have we consulted you years ago? Yes, because we should have had you protect every domain that we could have, but we didn't. And so
It's never too late.
I'm kicking myself for that. So you and I might be talking after this, Ed, about stuff.
We can always get some back for you.
Yeah.
But that's great. Lois, you got some things buzzing around your head, I can tell.
I have actually, because I'm just coming back to that beautiful point you made earlier, Simon, about value. And, you know, even right back to when you were asking people for input and consulting with them, and you would, you know, say, I'll drive out to see you or fly out to see you and pay you. I don't know if it's an Aussie-ism or not, but a lot of people will say, oh, can I just catch up for coffee and pick your brains? You know? And, you know, the fact that you were prepared to go, you know, you're of value, I value you, I'm going to get, you know, this information, and then you were able to use it and then provide massive value at the seminar as well, I think really stands true. The other thing that I'm picking up, you know, is the value of relationships, and that you, even the, you know, the logistics people that you already knew. And when I'm working with people in the career realm, it's one thing to help people work out what they want to do and what they'll be, you know, really fired up to do with their work life, but also gathering the right people around them. And often it is by research. It is actually people that you've known before, or even if you haven't actually worked directly with them, you know their work character. So that's something that obviously you were able to garner there. But I think that's you as well, Simon. You lived that. So therefore, when you did reach out and do the ask, which I think Aussies would do that as well, in terms of the mateship, but sometimes the ask is harder, I think. You know, that's maybe something that's a more Americanism, to be more front-footed. I don't know if we can say that, but it's obviously very individual. But I think that's the thing, is you have that mateship and that great relationship with people, but you're also prepared to ask. So that's kind of really, amazing that that's how you've driven, I think, you know, from my point of view.
I appreciate that, Lois. I mean, I think, you know, even this week, we hired 2 consultants to help us with the project, right? And, you know, we're paying them. You know, do I want to pay them in this environment? No, but I couldn't get the job done without them. And I'm not going to certainly call them up and say, hey, could you just do me a favor and do this for free, right?
Sure.
And, you know, one of those consultants, you know, she's expensive by the hours, like, you know, and all of a sudden now I'm at 3 hours with that person. But the value that she can transfer to us is huge, right? And, you know, when you need specialist expertise, you're not taking it seriously enough if you're not prepared to use your own money and pay. Now, I know a lot of people have limited resource, right? But if someone came to me today and said, can you teach me something about this? If they made an offer to say, I can't pay you now, but I can pay you in a year. I can pay you in this, I can pay you in that. I just want to see that you've got the right intent and that you've got the right determination, right? Yeah. And I think that's really important. And I think that with us, we've been fortunate that we can hire the right consultants and the smartest people. When we look at a problem, I'm determined, let's go find the smartest person on the planet. And tomorrow, Ed, you know, we're interviewing a guy on LinkedIn, you know, because we've been bashing away at social media, because I'm absolutely convinced the only way through this is to be top of mind, to create content. You're doing it right now, not with me, with all the other good people before, but you're creating great content, right? And content is king, as you both know.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yep.
And so, you know, we're trying to find the best people. And the guy that we are having on tomorrow is a guy that you just can't get. He's just too busy. And, you know, the other quick thing I'll say is that when I was consulting back in Australia, the client said, you need to go find the #1 data guy in the world, right? And he just happened to work for Google, but he had a consulting business. As you know, Google have this 80-20 rule. 80% you work on our business, 20% you can work whatever you want. You can do your own thing, right? And so I called him up and I said, you're the smartest data guy in the world. I'm coming to see you. And he said, okay. So I jumped on a plane. I flew to Google. He had hosted me to lunch and I hired him. His fee was exorbitant, but the client said, absolutely, he's the #1 guy. And I think that's, you know, we've been able to catch people's attention with that.
Yeah,
that's awesome. Can you share who that is, or is that top secret?
No, the guy's name is Avinash Kaushik. He's the head of analytics and the digital evangelist for Google. He is responsible for $2 billion worth of marketing and analysis at Google. He has the smartest people on the planet work for him. If he can't work something out, it can't be worked out, right? And so I said to him, would you come and help me tomorrow, you know, have a chat with me and And he's the sort of guy, Ed, that and I laugh because I've known him exactly the same time I've known you. I've known him for 15 years.
Okay.
And I saw him speak at an event, and we were talking afterwards. And I said, when you went to university, you're sitting there in the lecture. Did the lecturer just walk up to you and say, here, you teach this shit? I don't know. You're smarter than me, right? And he, because he's 1,000,000% smart, right? I bet you even, when he sits at Google, and there's a really good little video on the promo I did on my post, a Google video. I bet you when Larry and Sergey sent an email, I bet you they sent it out to about 5 people saying, we've got to write an email to Avanos. Make sure we don't look stupid. Can you have a read of this before we send it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he's the most humble, kind, gentle man you'll ever meet. And he'll help you, and I think just ask. And I bet you there's people sitting here watching this thing, that guy's crazy, but Ed and Lois are smart. If your domain knowledge or your career knowledge, just call you up and ask you, what if they sent you an email and said, look, I really need your help with this, right? What I've seen in the last 10 weeks about sitting here in my underwear on LinkedIn, essentially, is, and I've got pants on, I promise you now. My daughter made sure, Dad, make sure you're wearing pants this time. You're talking to Aussies, right? And so I think that I've noticed a revolution of social media. People have connected. I don't know what's happened. I know it's good, and I know I want to be part of it. And I've got some things brewing around in our head that we might try. But I have been amazed at the sense of community and the spirit of community with LinkedIn. And I think that's 690 million people on the platform. 1% are producing content. 1%.
It's amazing.
It is a fraction. And I'm a follower of Gary V. Gary V. Or Gary Vaynerchuk is an amazingly smart guy. Made some very successful businesses. He's polarizing though, because he just speaks his mind. But that's fantastic. I love people who are that way, because if you're just down the middle and you're a fence sitter, then who cares? But he speaks his mind, and he's always on the money about what's the current thing and picking what's happening. Right. He doesn't pick things that are futuristic. This is what's happening now. You need to get on this. And LinkedIn is one of those areas he's been pushing for the last 12 months.
Yeah. Simon, I was just going to also say with your LinkedIn, because I had a look, and I want to ask you about you transporting the dogs later, but we'll hold that one off for a second. With LinkedIn, I think it's really interesting because I'm hearing, like social media, but like I have a bit of a contrarian view of LinkedIn, that social media is just a facet of it, how you appear in the feed and that kind of thing. And that obviously coming back to your relationships discussion, it's really all about building those relationships as well. And even looking at your profile today, a little thing was twigged by me, was when you said about something you referenced your ex-wife in a very fond way. I think it was about protection and your family, and fierce about your family, and you mentioned including your ex-wife, and I thought that was beautiful. And then as I sort of went down your profile, and I was being the career nerd, I was sort of going, oh, what have you done before? And you went to Wesley in Melbourne, or sort of getting a bit of a sense of your history. Which of course never really tells you as much as meeting someone in person. But I also noticed then the recommendation that you had from a lady that you'd worked sort of aside with, and I always say to people, get that 360, have people that reported to you, have people that you reported to, and then have people that are your running mates and that sort of thing. And so I don't know if you realise that I kind of looked at all that, and like I was influenced by the fact that you seem like a really good guy. I already know that through Ed, but in terms of your business, and that obviously a lot of your clients are female as well, I just felt like that spoke to me as well. So I don't, like a lot of people put a lot of emphasis on what they're posting and what they're doing, but it's actually also when people come to your profile to suss you out, as we say in Oz, that resonates with them as well. So I don't know if that's something you're aware of.
Probably not, but if you'd met my sister and my mother, you'd know that I'm at a loss, from the start, right? So if I don't do the right thing by the female community, there's a lot of pain at the other end. I mean, I've worked with some amazing people, whether or not I've never thought of them as male or female. And, I haven't thought about it, to be honest, but I think that what I've learned, you know, and I came from probably a pretty stiff corporate background at the start, and I thought, oh, this is the way you got to do things, you know. And when you work for British Telecom back then, it was like very hierarchical, you know, very chauvinistic.
Yep.
But I think the thing that I've learned with, say, LinkedIn, because that's the platform I like the most, is that people just want you to be you, right?
Yeah.
And I think that we're doing this as, you know, three Aussies having a chat, and you know, we're not wearing a tie. I've got a scotch over here that's getting warm.
Drink it.
You know, but no, it's fine.
Drink it, Freddie. Drink it.
My mother watched this later. She said, "What you mate? You can't believe you were drinking on that TV show with Ed." And she thinks podcasts are TV. You know, well, how do I turn into? How do I watch this podcast? What channel is it on? And so, you know, I think that's what's winning now. And if you look, you know, if you guys know anything about what's happening in New York with Andrew Cuomo, the governor, and his brother, who's a CNN, you know, reporter, the bond that those two brothers are having online has absolutely been a breath of fresh air to a very terrible environment here in the United States. And because it's genuine, it's two brothers taking the piss out of each other. Right? And being genuine. Do you want me to stop swearing so you can edit this out for the?
No, that's okay. That's
okay. That's all good.
And so, you know, and I think I've just said, well, if I'm going to be on social media stuff, I'm going to be me. I'm going to and I'm going to I'll try and remember to wear pants every time I go on a, you know, Zoom session. But I think that's what's resonating with people. And, you know, that's my determination now to say, okay, how do we make a difference? How do we get out in front of it? How do we connect with our community? How do we connect with our client base?
Yeah, fantastic. You've got to be real. You absolutely have to be real, but otherwise people see right through it. Right. Transparency, I think, is the key. But there's a lot of people trying to be something they're not on the internet these days. There's a huge amount of that, and I think people just really find it genuinely refreshing when someone is just being themselves and not trying to manipulate or influence or whatever the words are. They're just being who they are. And look, you've got I mean, we talk about sales before, but I think also you come from a very, very, very high customer service base, because there's no way you would have run the X10. There's no way you would have put on the X10 Seminar and run it like you did if you weren't service based, in my opinion.
No, and I think that's probably yes. We do stuff for our clients that no one else wants to do, right?
Yeah.
Or perhaps no one else is prepared to do. They just think, I don't really want to do that. And I've always said, find the 10% of it that everybody else doesn't want to do, because if you do that, you'll have that client forever, and you'll be able to charge more, and you'll be, you know, when the chips are down, they'll be with you. And, you know, it's like we're doing grocery shopping for, you know, a client in Boulder that just doesn't want to go to the store, but he's our number one client. Right? If he wants me to go paint his house, I'll go paint his house. I don't care. Right?
That's diversification. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Because if you knew how much he actually helped us, it's just, you wouldn't believe it. Right. And so he doesn't equate that, you know, he equates his helping financially as a thing he can click his finger and it's never talk about it again. Don't worry about it. It's all done. Right. But you going to get my groceries, or you picking up my two boys, you know, that's to him is the difference between us and our competitor. Right. And I think
trust
that's
as well. Massive
right.
trust.
And,
there.
you know, we have that with all of our clients. I mean, I think, you know, we have more garage codes, more car keys, more alarm codes than I know what to do with, right? Because the client trusts you, right? And once you've got that, I think then you've got a real business, I think, you know.
For sure.
Agreed.
Because you can pivot with them quickly. You can say, look, you know, I mean, one of the things we're looking at is dog hiking, you know. We've got vans, we've got vehicles. And so we say, you know, how many of our clients have got dogs? They've all got dogs.
Yeah,
they're all been at home. They're all at home, cooped up, going crazy. And so the owners are saying, help us get rid of the dogs, take them on a hike. And so we've got a person that we've partnered with, and we've converted a vehicle. And I don't know if it's going to work, but I know what we can charge for them. And the client's going to say, yeah, Simon, that makes perfect sense. You've got our credit card. Thank God, come get the dogs. In fact, if you can take that husband or the kids, take them too. Right?
No, leave the dogs, take them. Yeah.
Exactly. Right.
I mean, I remember Ed and I and Sasha, when she was only 7, she's 21 now, so that's a while ago, came to America, and we drove down the Big Sur, and we watched, we stopped into Carmel, and we could not believe there was a shop that sold bride and groom costumes for dogs, and it had special baked treats for dogs, and we'd never seen anything like that. I mean, there are things like that now in Oz, but that was, you know, as usual, that they were the front runners of these sorts of things, and lots of ladies with little dogs in their bags walking around in Carmel. So it was quite an eye-opener for us, but I realised, you know, the pet industry is a massive industry now too. So the fact that you're catering to people, four-legged children, is fantastic. We have one of those as well, so you know all about that. I know. I think I saw a post, and you had like the 2 big dogs actually in the car. I think you were transporting them or taking them somewhere else. Was that right?
Yeah, we got called up by a client whose daughter had gone from Colorado to Raleigh, North Carolina. That's Melbourne to Darwin, right?
Wow.
Yeah.
In distance. And she had some health issues. She couldn't fly, and the 2 dogs obviously couldn't fly because one was a Rottweiler and one was a pit bull. And I had no idea. I had no idea what the difference was, apart from them. Both of them could rip your head off if they wanted to, I suppose, if you pissed them off. And so we got dispatched to fly across country and meet the daughter and drive back with her and the dogs, because people are complete. I mean, if you can find a product that caters to animals, people are completely irrational with animals.
Oh.
They're not.
Yeah, totally.
Sasha could come home and say, "Mum and Dad, I broke my foot." Okay, honey, are you okay? Yeah, fine. The dog could have a limp. Just within minutes, you're prepared to spend $15,000 on the vet, right? Whereas your own child, you walk it off. It's good. You take an aspirin. Take an aspirin. Right? And I have seen people be completely irrational with animals. And so, you know, if you can cater to that need, then people deserve it. You know, you should take their money, right? Because,
well, mate, that's happening today. Our dog's getting a haircut per se, which will be $80 or $90, and mine,
which is about $75 more than you paid. I can tell you that. Right?
It is. Mine's $15
with his daughter,
and she's only about half the price of what Lois spends on her hair. So
that's cheap. That's a cheap visit.
That is cheap. So you know, but she sits somewhere in between, and she's a dog. So that just goes to show you're dead right. So and look, so you we've been talking to you for about an hour or so now, so we'll start winding up so we can let you get back to that Scotch. And but you have pivoted quite a lot with, you know, you've I mean, for those who are looking at what 8 Black Cars are, can you just give us a bit of a rundown on the services that you provide there?
Yeah, sure. I mean, we do the standard executive transfers between airports and homes and offices. That's the standard, person calls us up and says, "I need to be at the airport at 6 a.m. And that's vanilla. Everyone does that. Colorado, there's 3,500 companies that do that.
Right.
We do it with SUVs, we do it with sedans, we do it with sprinters or 14-passenger vehicles. And then we do a lot of the event stuff. So where you need to move 600 people, a corporate needs to move 600 people from, the office to the Christmas party, for example. And then we do, obviously, weddings, 21st parties, that sort of stuff. We do a lot of winter work in the ski season. So we take a lot of people from out of town up and down the mountain. And it's a very challenging piece of road that goes up, to the Colorado ski fields. And that's a good part of our business. And then we do some of the stuff that really no one wants to do, and that's executive protection. And so that's where we provide armored transportation. We provide, security details that are, well-credentialed people that carry firearms. This week, for example, we're on a large security project for a client here in town that had an employee, an ex-employee, have some issues. And so we provide that sort of perimeter and static security. Is it something that, we got into just by willy-nilly? No, but we knew there was a niche for it. And when you can get a niche product, you can essentially charge what you want, right? In terms of within reason, and I think that certainly helped us in this pandemic where we are at a 90% revenue loss. The industry is at a 90% revenue loss, but we've had probably more work on, for doing all the little stuff, the concierge plus, the vehicle maintenance, transporting dogs across the country. We've still been able to keep active and busy. Have I been happy about it? No, not at all. It's not, our industry may never be the same, but we're not, we won't die trying. We're going to give it a crack, and we'll see what runs out the end of it. And that's why, social media for us is perhaps the best thing we can do right now to see what, if we throw enough mud at it, we'll see what happens. And, as to your point, Lois, we'll be passionate about whatever we do. We're going to make sure that we love what we're doing, and that we can make a crack, we can make a living out of it, and we can scale it, hopefully, right? That's kind of what I am in life, right?
Fantastic. Lo, Simon's frozen up there.
He's frozen.
There we go.
There must be the ice in his drink.
Yeah, no, we lost him for a sec there. Have you got anything else you wanted to ask Simon before we finish?
I don't know. There you go. I don't know what happened there.
That's
all right.
I'm sorry about that. It's going to ruin your consistency with the product.
That's fine. People are forgiving. This is a pretty standard thing with.
Yeah.
It's just it's seconds. Lo, did you have anything you wanted to finish up asking Simon?
Lots. I just look forward to hanging out in Colorado with you sometime, Simon.
Yeah,
maybe
good.
not sometime soon, but one
we'll
of these days.
Send a car for you. It's pretty easy.
Thank you. Awesome.
Right?
No, that would be great.
Come see us.
No, it's really inspiring.
See you later, Lois. Ed,
it's
good to see you, my friend. Let's have a chat after this. I've got some things I want to pick your brain about, and I'll pay you.
Yeah. Just for those who are watching, Ed's about to hang up from Simon because he used to pick your brains. And there's a little tip: don't ever use pick your brains with Ed or Lois because we will not respond.
No, we'll put the clock on.
It's been awesome catching up with you, Simon.
You too, mate.
You sharing your wisdom. And thanks, Lo. Of course.
Wisdom.
Oh, come on. He's very modest as well.
Yes, lots of wisdom.
And so follow Simon on social media, Simon Chen. And you can also go to 8blackcars.com to find out more if you're in the US or in Colorado and you need his services. He's the man. Absolutely. So take care. And we'll speak to you after this call.
You too.
And
cheers.
Bye for now, everyone. Thanks for tuning in.
See you later.
Bye-bye.